The Babraham Institute undertakes world-leading research into understanding the biology of how our bodies work, including what changes as we age and during disease. In Scientist Stories, we invite you to meet some of the scientists behind the research and discover more about what they do and how they got to be here. Welcome to this Scientist Stories. I'm here with Dr. Rostovskaya. Hello, Maria.
Hi, Jo.
Lovely to have you with us. Can I ask you, Maria, to tell us a little bit about your role and your job? So what's your role at the Babraham Institute?
I'm a senior scientist at the epigenetics department at Babraham Institute.
Thanks very much. And we'll start to unpick what some of those things mean through this conversation as well. So can you tell us a little bit about what your area of research is, please?
I'm interested in human embryonic development. And for me, the most fascinating question is how the whole diversity of cell types in our body emerges from a single cell. And it is very difficult to study this in the real embryo because it is practically inaccessible for research, but we use stem cells. So stem cells are grown in a dish, and we can model embryonic development using those cells.
That sounds fascinating, Maria. So you're using stem cells that can potentially divide into any source of cell, and using those to model an embryonic cell, a cell early in its development, so that you can investigate that. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. And can you tell me a little bit about your background? So how did you get to being the researcher that you are today? So where are you from? What did you study at school and university? That sort of thing.
Originally, I'm from Russia. So I studied at school there, and also I did my undergrad there in Moscow at Moscow State University. And after the university, I wasn't convinced to continue in academia. And I stopped for a while, so I had a job, and I was interested in various things, and I was exploring, and I was very seriously into dancing. I was a dance teacher. And then after 3 years, I realized that I want to achieve more, and I decided to pursue PhD. So, and I decided to give it a go and give it a try. So I applied for PhD at Max Planck Institute in Germany, and I got a place there. So then I left, and it was a very fascinating time. And this is when I realized that actually I do want to be a scientist, and this is how my path began. I first worked in a slightly different area. It was also with stem cells, but about bone marrow stem cells. But then I had a side project about the stem cells which model this early development, the embryo. And then I decided to combine those models and questions, and this is how my project evolved. So after PhD, I moved to Cambridge to do my postdoc, and this is where I am now.
Fantastic. So just to explain that a postdoc or a postdoctoral position is a research position that happens after you've completed a PhD. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And so we'll come back to the fact that you're an amazing dancer in a little while. And I think it's really fascinating that we can look at all the different facets and components of our personalities and of our skills and strengths as well. But if I can just ask you a little bit more about your undergraduate degree. So obviously it might work slightly differently in Russia, but did you study a main subject, a particular area of science for your undergraduate?
I studied molecular biology. So my current research is slightly related, but not exactly the same. So it can deviate, it can evolve. So it does not have to be what exactly you studied before.
Absolutely, it's a very winding path, and we get to notice lots of different things and try out different things along the way. Which brings me back then to this very different side of your life as well, working as a dance teacher and spending a lot of time dancing. So I would say, what are your interests outside of science? But I'm guessing that dance might appear quite heavily there. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I started dancing as a child. So since I was really very little, and I did various styles, so starting from ballroom, and then also solo dancing like jazz, contemporary, modern. So I still do a lot of dancing. So I go often to congresses or workshops or boot camps. So it is still a big part of my life.
I think that's really lovely to hear, actually, that yes, you're fascinated by the science and the research that you do, but actually there's so much more out there and more to what makes Maria Maria as well. That's fantastic. So if you could describe what a typical day might look like for you, what might that involve?
So it depends on the stage of the project, because I'm experimental scientist, so I do a lot of experiments in the lab, but also I do a lot of computational work. So if I do experiments, then straight I go to the lab and then I go to a tissue culture. So this is a room where we grow cells. We have incubators and we have microscopes. So I take my Petri dishes out of the incubator and then I look at them under the microscope and decide what I do with them. And then that is followed by just experimental procedures, passaging the cells, feeding the cells, taking care of them. And if my project at this stage of the data analysis, then I usually stay in front of my computer, programming, writing scripts. And if this is the stage when I'm writing up a manuscript, because each project usually results in a paper. This is how we share our scientific findings with the community. So we write up a story. So and then I would sit in front of my computer and just write, prepare the results, prepare figures, communicate with other co-authors with the journal.
There's lots of different components to the things that you do, so you're not spending every day doing exactly the same thing.
No, it's variable.
And if you could give a piece of advice to someone who might be interested in a career in science, what might that be?
I would say follow your curiosity, follow your heart. So you need to be dedicated to what you do, and it is only possible when you do what you really like, what your passion is about. That would be my advice.
That's absolutely brilliant advice, Maria. Thank you. So it's all about being curious and doing the things that interest you. Thanks ever so much for joining us for Scientist Stories today.